Hello my good friends, this is Chaos Angel here, also known as Lord Omni, and I'm back at it again with another video discussion for you guys. And it is finally time. Time for the biggest moment before the release of the next expansion to Final Fantasy XIV. You all know what it is. The time for the media tour has finally arrived, with Yoshi P giving us the official date of the live letter, detailing any changes to the combat system, as well as overall changes to all of the jobs and their actions. This is the moment we've all been waiting for, and the hype has never been so high, even higher than Heaven on High itself. And though we still have a bit before the actual release of Endwalker, I will say that with this gigantic jackpot of information coming to us, it will hopefully last us until the game's eventual release. The wait was long, guys, it was arduous, but we're finally getting to what will likely be the biggest shift in Final Fantasy XIV's popularity with this expansion. And many things have happened since Endwalker's official reveal in February, as well as the details added back in May. Much of what we got from those events were just appetizers for what will be a bountiful feast come within this month, as we will be given quite the info dump with Final Fantasy XIV's media tour live letter. There's just so much to be hype about, it's kinda hard not to be waiting in anticipation for this huge event to come even faster. And speaking of the event, as you can tell from the title, we will be discussing on the biggest thing that many likely want to see the most from this live letter. Yes, I'll be talking about my thoughts and wants in what I'd like to see in terms of changes for the jobs coming in Endwalker, and above all, delve into what I'd like to see from the new jobs as well. This topic is something that I've been pondering for quite some time now, and couldn't help but want to finally share it given the timing. And since most of the things I have to say have been building up throughout this time, especially throughout the years of Shadowbringers, I have a lot of shit to say in regards to these jobs. Others, not so much, as I haven't been playing them as much as I would like to, but regardless, with this in mind, I want to split this into multiple video categories, and it'll essentially be within the 3 roles, just to make sure this doesn't go on for too long in one video. Cause let me tell you again, I'm gonna get into the nitty-gritty of these jobs in some way, shape, or fashion, and I'm sure from what you've seen on the length of this video alone, these videos will be very long, so strap in. I hope you all will enjoy what I have to say on the matter, and please don't hesitate to give me your wants and changes for the jobs coming in the next expansion, and even later down the line for that matter. So, with that, let's get this wish list underway and discuss on the many changes these jobs so desperately need, or just overall things that I as well as we all would like to see happen. Let's get it. So then, let's start off with the first role on the list, being the ever so complete role in terms of balance, I believe, to be the tanks. But hold on, wait a minute, hold on. I think I'm forgetting about something. Oh yeah, that's right. First things first, let me get one thing out of the way and explain a couple of aspects that I would like to see be made change universally to all jobs. These are, in my opinion, something I feel should most certainly be a priority when it comes to the changes needed for these jobs. For one thing, can we please make all job DPS actions as far as weapon skills and spells have a follow-up action connected to it for consolidation purposes? Examples of this would be letting skills like Assassinate follow up after Dream Within a Dream as one hotbar, not just 2 separate hotbars, essentially making it similar to how like PvP hotbar actions work in a way. Or for another example, like how Dragon's True Thrust turns into Raiden Thrust when fulfilling the condition requirements. The same can be said for like Red Mage's Ver Thunder and Ver Arrow changing into Ver Flare and Ver Holy respectively. There are many actions I feel need this pretty badly for consolidation purposes, and I will give examples under each respective job that needs it. I will say, however, that I'm aware of the complications that come with this change, like for instance the example of Assassinate having this follow up. This would likely only work if both skills were actually weapon skills and not cooldowns per se. A big difference when compared to the other examples given. This is of course just a disclaimer on this change though. Another thing that I would like to add is having all actions with like a duration set to it, having stacks instead of, well, to effectively use said ability in combat efficiently. Examples of this would be any skills that are spammable in nature like Requiescat, Inner Release, Delirium, Nastron, and Hypercharge. In addition, though we've already gotten a pretty good confirmation on this from the benchmark trailer, I'm hoping to see jobs getting a bit more extravagant final actions or just extravagant actions in general, which will essentially be fulfilling Yoshi P's wanting of jobs having like actions similar to that of Paladin's Passage of Arms. And then lastly, all jobs receiving past actions that were removed and reworked to be essentially best fit the jobs in games currently or just future mechanics. I'll be delving into this with pretty much many of these jobs within all 3 videos. So just want to put that out there. And before I forget, actually, one other last thing is that a great majority need a bigger expansion to their gauges, as they don't entirely have a focus with their job when it comes to it, and I will get into that a little bit more deeply when I actually get to said job in that note. But for now, let's go ahead and move on to the actual tank roll and pretty much start with a little bit of something with the actual tank roll itself before we actually get into the jobs individually. Now, I think in some way they should probably bring back Ultimatum. Unpopular opinion, I know. I just feel like one expansion was just not long enough for that skill to last. Sure enough, given how tanks can easily establish aggro in this expansion, this would of course be pointless to have. I just want to put it out there as it was a pretty neat skill, really. Now, let's kick things off with the poster job of the expansion, the Paladin. Paladin has a lot going for it already, to be perfectly honest. It's quite possibly the most balanced in terms of defensive and offensive ability of all the tanks in my opinion. Though when it comes to some of their defensive cooldowns, there are less to be desired in comparison to some jobs, not all. And that speaks volume considering what it was like back in ARR and Heavensward. It really has grown up and now it's finally getting its time to shine in the newest expansion. But given that it already has so much going for it currently, what can be done to change things up? Well, there are a number of things I thought they could work on in some areas. To start, let's talk about the follow-up action Atonement. I believe this should activate in hotbar after Royal Authority or a brand new skill that they'll most likely have to upgrade Royal Authority, and pretty much use that button for consolidation purposes. Similar to how like Dragoon's True Thrust turns into Raiden Thrust, essentially. Another thing that would be interesting to see is an actual AoE version of Atonement after the use of Prominence, acting in a similar way as the previous note for Atonement, where it would be in hotbar. And then, as noted before, I feel Requiescat should be granted stacks for a limited number of immediate use for either spell while it's in its buff. These are some of the things I feel that would lessen the number of buttons to use while adding new and old skills. And speaking of the use of skills, let's talk about the gauge. The Paladin's gauge is in need of more optimization in terms of action use. PvP's way of using Confiteor can allow it to have way more uses as it will be moved to a lower skill in comparison to level 90 actions. Or they can use another method to make Confiteor a multi-use attack, although that would just make it another discount war, and it's already at that point along with Dark Knight. So they can essentially build around it for later levels. Either or will work. Another use for it could be the changing of intervention and making it an all-rounded skill similar to all other tanks. You will be able to take advantage of your Rampart or Sentinel, or both, before it goes off and get a boost in defensive buffs with an extended recast time of maybe 5 or 10 seconds, essentially, making it about maybe 20 to 25 seconds at best. I feel like there just needs to be more opportunities in using the gauge with the kit we have. Because other than Sheltron and cover, intervention just doesn't seem to have much use other than in high-end content. And considering how we learn in the benchmark trailer that Paladin will be getting something of an upgrade to Sheltron, they might just get rid of a good number of defensive buffs to shave off some of the skill's bloat. One skill I know of that should definitely be reworked or removed would have to be Divine Veil. I'm sorry, but that skill just isn't that great of a party cooldown. Not only the way to activate it is so roundabout, it doesn't even cover the one who activates it. Something a certain range DPS know full well how that feels. It needs to be redone. Otherwise, just get rid of it, please. It feels fairly pointless to me in the way it must be used in comparison to other tanks, as they don't have to go that extra mile to cover the party. And then last but not least, the change I would like to make is getting rid of the whole maximum HP required effect to deal increased damage on spirits within. This aspect in some ways has made Paladin somewhat of a relegated off tank, which honestly, that kind of thinking of needing to be at full health to deal damage at all times just seems ridiculous. Considering you're a tank, you will obviously be hit. So yes, very ridiculous, but it's true. It's not even something I made up. I feel they should give this a different increased potency requirement. It just feels weird to have on a job that will obviously take damage throughout a fight, and in all honesty, it just would make things a little bit more easier on the Paladin when it comes to their damage optimization. Now, so far, Paladin is in a pretty good place. It just needs consolidation with his buttons here and there. Just tweak a little bit of some skills while adding some new ones. Like, for instance, the whole Royal Authority upgrade. Sure enough, there will probably be other skills that they will most likely be having upgrades on. I can't really think of any because Paladin just has so much in its kit that it's kind of hard to really think about what new you can actually add on to it. But at the very least, if they could just get rid of the whole discount and a release of Requiescat, change it up a little bit, and then make Atonement something of significance instead of having that whole entire discount in a release thing, and just make something original that only Paladins can do, then we will essentially be good to go. It would definitely be cool if we can have some more holy abilities though. I'll definitely put that out there. But anyway, we now move on to the next tank in the lineup, being the rampaging, axe-wielding, fell-cleaving frenzy of a job that is Warrior. And the job that practically the other tanks, excluding Gunbreaker, ended up copying in some way, much to many's dismay. I don't have much to add for Warrior, as I haven't really played this job as much as I'd like, and even then there hasn't been much of a change in what Warrior really does in terms of rotation and overall gameplay, which is why I'm hoping to see an overall of sorts on this job. Anything they can think of to liven things up, because man, I don't know if many of the players even are even maining this job nowadays, or even before to begin with, to be honest with you. Now, if there were a few things that I would want to have in the long run for this job, is for it to have its butcher's blocks back. Like, can we please have that animation back? Butcher's block was a very nice looking skill. Like, seriously. Either replace the ridiculous animation for Storm's Path and just put the animation of Butcher's Block in it, Or make it a new ability that is like enhanced, like Chaotic Cyclone and Inner Chaos. Just please. I miss looking at that skill in general. Another thing would be to have Storm's Eyes buff added to our AoE rotation. Something that I'm going to be repeating myself with another job in another video, so look out for that. But again, it's kind of criminal that we have to do a single target combo just to get our buff and then use our AoE rotation to extend it. Like, please, let us apply it with both combos. It would make entirely too much sense to have it that way, and it just really baffles me how it wasn't like that from the beginning. Now, from what we saw in the benchmark, there does seem to be either a new single target or AoE ability that Warrior will be receiving. We still don't know, technically speaking, if whether or not if this is an AoE ability. It looks like it would be, but at the same time, it just, like, the startup animation of the attack just didn't look like it would be an AoE. So it's like, another thing about it is that I'm not even sure if it will be an upgrade of an existing move or something new to push. Like, for instance, if it would actually be an AoE variant of another skill. Either way, it doesn't look any less badass when it comes to it. So that's one check mark on the side for Warrior in the long run. Can't wait to see what else they have in store for us, because this job definitely needs more buttons to push. Now, though I didn't have too much to say about this job, you can go ahead and hate me in the comments. I do, however, have a lot of shit to say regarding to it when it comes to the next job. So let's go ahead and move on to the Dark Knight, shall we? Now, we have finally gotten to Dark Knight. And with this being literally one of the 4 jobs that I play the most in this entire game, I have a lot of shit to say about this job and the many changes I would like to see made to it. Whether it is in Endwalker or another expansion later down the line, as well as one very particular detail that has been missing for quite some time that I will touch upon later. But trust me, you'll get to that after all is said and done. Oh, don't worry, we'll get to it soon enough. Soon enough. But first things first, can we give practically all the things that worked for Dark Knight back to Dark Knight? As much as I love the tools Dark Knight has, it has been severely crippled of many things other jobs have that it doesn't, other than a stupid spamming mechanic it copied from another job. And not only that, it overall had so many things taken from it where much of its identity has been stripped completely, which is disappointing. I must say, like, so far, all 3 jobs from Heavensward has been revised numerous times up to this point and are still in need of changes to them. Machinist, technically speaking, being the first to be an entirely new job with this change. Now, to start off, give it back its power slash, please. Or just some variation of it for another combo finisher. Like, or hells, bring back the old Delirium and name it something else. Because even though I've since been desensitized by spamming Soul Eater due to Stormblood, that doesn't really mean I'm fond of the fact that I still have to spam the same 1-2-3 combo in Shadowbringers. Like I said before, as much as I love Dark Knight and go back to playing the job, no matter how monotonous it gets, that doesn't change the fact that the job, in terms of its rotation, is not boring. So please, fix it. Another thing I find off-putting is its AoE rotation in early levels. Why in the actual flippity flip is Dark Knight the only flippin' tank that gets its second AoE at a level that is not level 40? Like, whom in the world thought that that was a good idea? Fix that. Like, pronto. Like, no, seriously. That was just messed up. to think it was a good idea to put Starward Soul at level 72. And don't even think of telling me that but the skill increases the blood gauge, so maybe that's why they did it? And my response to that is Warrior's Mithril Tempest at level 40. It also increases its beast gauge via by the trait at level 74. So no, there was absolutely no excuse for this nonsense. Bad. Shame on you. Now fix it. Please and thank you. And speaking of shame, you just had to get rid of one of the things that made Dark Knight stand out when it came to being a tank as far as DPS is concerned, and that is skill speed. There was absolutely no need to remove the skill speed increase from Blood Weapon. That was quite frankly a godsend of ability on top of regaining our MP. I just can't really begin to understand why it was removed, honestly. Another thing that would be great to add on for this skill is giving the cooldown stacks similar to Paladin's Atonement and Ninja's Boonshin, as that would make it easier to get all of our MP from each of our attacks. It got like really annoying whenever my skill speed just wasn't high enough, or the server tick just didn't want to help me out during my blood weapon window. I just don't know, but I digress. I would very much like this to be changed and just bring it back to the old way it was. Wallace like giving us blood and all that nonsense, please. Just bring it back, please. And speaking of having things back, there are three other things that I would very much like to have back. And that is our Scourge. If you could please give us back that, along with our old Abyssal Drain. And for the love of all that is holy, can we back like our old Salted Earth? Sure enough, I know what you are thinking. If we were to have all of those back in the next expansion, Dark Knight would most likely be OP. But just give me a second. Just give me a second. Let me get into that real quick. I'll get into that in a second. Now, so many times I think back on the fact of how much Scourge would be nice to have just for the sake of looking at the epic animation. And yet, considering how dots for tanks seems to be of no issue anymore due to Gunbreaker's way of doing dots now, like it is so much. Is it so much to ask to have that ability back? Is it so much to ask to have that skill back? Is it? Like, is it really? I just want to ask. Not to mention, Salted Earth. Oh, Salted Earth. How nice of an ability you were back in Stormblood. Not only dealing dot damage, but also increasing the blood gauge. No doubt the Dark Knight would be a force to be reckoned with in AoE mob situations. And speaking of mob situations, let's go ahead and get into the whole entire deal with how apparently Dark Knight was OP back in the day. So, Abyssal Drain. Now I get why Dark Knight was made to have itself sustain be just a cooldown and pretty much be made like the weakest of all of the tanks. I know fairly well why they made it that way. And it's mainly due to one particular skill that already carries it in a great number of situations. And I can only guess that it's given how the Blackest Night that would make it fairly broken considering how Abyssal Drain used to work. However, let me tell you how incorrect that assumption is in letting you know that the only reason why Dark Knight would be broken if he was to have Abyssal Drain back to the way it was is mainly due to a couple of other reasons. Abyssal Drain, technically speaking, was never really broken because of TBN. No. The skill was more so ridiculous because of another skill known as Blood Price, Salted Earth, and Quietus. With these skills working in tandem with one another in Stormblood, Dark Knight was nigh unkillable in dungeons. Now I want to be clear, in dungeons. Now in raid content, this wouldn't be the case. Not so much. But like, if you know what you were doing, you would be nigh unkillable in dungeons. And sure enough, that would make it a little bit boring for the healers. I understand. But that doesn't mean that it wasn't fun as hell. So, to start with Blood Price, restoring the MP as you get hit, and then of course Salt to Earth, increasing the blood gauge as your dot is like dealing damage and allowing the use of Quietus, which also restores MP, it made it possible to literally just spam Abyssal Drain numerous times, essentially keeping your health from even remotely going any lower than 50% in most mob encounters. Though really, given how much of like what Dark Knight has been scrapped, I can't really see why we like can't still have this as a weapon skill. It would be very nice, but I digress. At the very least, it would be nice if we could just have Soul Survivor back, and that can be like our true self-sustain, essentially acting in a similar way to that of like Scholar's XCOG, which would actually kind of make it stand out amongst the tanks. To be real with you, that would be very interesting if they were to do that, and it would make the most amount of sense. That, and I just love the animation of that skill. So it's just like, bring freaking Soul Survivor back. Make it a 60-second cooldown that heals for about 1k potency after like 10 or 15 seconds of waiting time. This is just one of the many ideas to throw out there that like all the rest so far that I can really come up with. And now, as far as the currently new and updated abilities are, or should I say, Dark Knight's Dollar Tree Delirium to Warrior Sam Club Inner Release. Either way, nothing can really say how much I am disappointed in this aspect of the Dark Knight. Nothing about it screams original. And then it's even less prominent in comparison to that of Dark Knight's Inner Release. Like, you're not really getting crits from it. All you're getting is just MP regain. What? And it's like you're not really getting all that much of a regen of your MP to begin with. So it's just like, what? I kind of miss the actual point of this skill and its use when it comes to it. Like, that is what makes matters worse about this skill. So, quite frankly, it really is saddening. And I would have to say one sadder aspect is essentially, well, my boy Frey. Now, as much as I love the fact that my boy Frey is fighting along with me, and that he's in battle, and all this other nonsense, will never not be sad to see Frey in battle with me. I have a little bit of an issue with the fact that whenever a boss becomes untargetable, or even worse, the summoning animation takes way too long for them to really like do anything at a certain point, and then the boss ends up disappearing or something else happens. Like, for instance, in mob situations, mobs are already dying, and so it's just like there really isn't much point in the use of you summoning Frey, because his animation takes way too damn long. You'll pretty much just be wasting 50 of your blood gauge, and then at the same time, freaking 2 minutes of a cooldown. So it really just puts a damper on your DPS. And it's just one of the many things that you are depending on to use fully when it comes to your burst rotation. That's why I would very much like to see this skill get a little bit more attention when it comes to any changes they might have for it. Probably decrease the animation frames on it or something of that nature. I don't know. It just needs to come out a little bit faster. Now then, we're almost at the finish line with this job. I believe I hit every basis I want to go on with this job. However, there is just one more thing. One more thing I need to talk to you guys about. And this one more thing, another thing that needs more attention right now, is this thing right here. Do you see it? I know I can. It's the thing that we have never gotten all the way back from Heavensward and have yet to even see anything remotely close to it to this very day. Why? Why, oh why, have we not received anything of note as an update to the Dark Aura for Dark Knight? I ask of you, my fellow Dark Knight brethren, why have we been forsaken? The requests are all there in the forums. We have made our voices clear, and yet it continues to go unheard. All that I ever wanted was to be covered in the very darkness that this job exudes from what we have seen. The Heavensward job action trailer, the level 50 job quest, the flippin' Shadowbringers trailer itself. Ugh. Square, why? Why do you hurt me so? And to make matters even worse is the fact that they freaking rub it in our faces as they flippin' give Warrior another aura via by nascent Flash. Are you kidding me? Not only does this flippin' job get some badass aura from Stormblood from freaking Inner Release, they thought, this isn't really enough. They need more to give off the feeling of unrelenting power and just rage. What should we do about this? Oh, I know. Let's give it another aura, but this time it's sporadic with orbs blinking around it. Genius. Ugh! Dang it. Okay, alright. So right now, Dark Knight is in a place where I wish they would be inspired to think of new mechanics for all the tanks that separate them. So it will be refreshing to try them like out each and every time that I switch between them. Because unfortunately, in this expansion, two of them took the short straw in this rendition of their like toolkit. But it's like, we'll see what comes in the freaking upcoming job actions live letter. I just really got to move on and just go ahead and calm myself down by moving on to the last tank in this lineup. So let's go ahead and talk about Gunbreaker. So here we are, folks. The last job of this video, and the one introduced in this expansion, the one and only Gunbreaker. And may I say, what an introduction indeed. This job was something else, I'll say, in terms of its mechanics and how it plays. Bringing in something new that makes it stand out from pretty much any job tank or melee DPS for that matter, because as the memes have stated so far, Gunbreaker is essentially a DPS of DPS in the tanking group. And I mean that mostly due to how it plays and not really how much damage it deals in comparison. Though I will say that it is up there in terms of damage amongst the tanks, no doubt about that. But since the job was introduced in this expansion, I can very well expect that we won't really be seeing much of a significant change to it in Endwalker, and that we'll most likely just see some minor tweaks here and there and some slight additions, like for instance what we have seen from the benchmark being like possibly another combo finisher added to the mix. One thing that I do know is that with the newly introduced mechanic that is the ability continuation, Gunbreaker has a lot going for it with just that skill alone. So I will say that if there was something that I would like to see change, it would probably have to be Bloodfest. Now, as much as I love the fact that they have essentially placed in draw from Final Fantasy VIII with how much you have to like target an enemy to use it, I find that that can at times be a detriment to the job itself when it comes to this game in general, mostly because of the fact that you have to target something to get said resource. So it would be nice that this ability could activate regardless of you targeting or not. It would benefit a lot from this change. But other than that, there really isn't much I can actually say on this job, as it is just too new to really add something or really think of something that it might need at this point. We saw from the benchmark trailer, again, the new combo like finisher or just maybe a new cooldown. I don't really know. We'll just have to wait and see exactly what in the world they have in store for us. I must say that whatever change that they have will definitely be welcome, even though it will most likely not be entirely too significant when it comes to it, but it will still be a welcome addition. I can only hope that with the fact that they were able to think about a new way of attacking with continuation, that this will hopefully mean that Dark Knight in some way can get like a similar treatment, not in like copying said ability, but at the very least coming up with something original for the job. That's all of that I hope for. Well then, my good friends, that is pretty much everything that I would like to cover on the tanks as far as changes go in Endwalker. Some may not happen at all, but all in all, I can only hope for the best on what will they do in the long run for the tanks. They are quite frankly the most balanced in terms of the roles in this expansion, in my opinion, even though there are some flaw aspects within some jobs here and there. Regardless of those flaws, they weren't any less fun to play in this expansion, in all honesty. So at the very least, that is something that I must commend the team when it came to this expansion. So keep up the good work, guys. I can't wait to see and just be amazed on what route you guys will take with the tanks this time around. With that, the next video we'll be going over is essentially the role that is quite frankly the most ridiculous in terms of balancing, and will be a pretty hefty one on the things that I'll have to say about them. So I'll see you guys in my discussion on what needs to be changed for the healers. And oh boy, there are quite some changes that I'll have to say on that. Trust and believe. Other than that, I will see you then. Please take the time to like, share, and comment on what you'd like to see change when it comes to the tanks if I missed anything in the long run. And if you are so inclined, if you would like to further add on to the discussion about the tanks or just jobs in general, don't hesitate to join us in my Discord of Chaos Sanctuary, where we all talk about the hype of video games, be it Final Fantasy XIV, Final Fantasy in general, or any other game that we are hyped for in the long run. But with that, I leave that to you guys. You have a very nice day, nice night, nice morning, nice afternoon, all that good nonsense. And I shall catch you in the next one. Peace out.